very early on, it said that we should never expect for you to be a doctor because you would make a terrible doctor, but that you were going to be rich and wealthy. And then your brother, his fortune was that he was going to be dean, that he was going to be powerful, so that you were going to be rich and he was going to be powerful, and that you would always be good brothers, have a great relationship. You would be close as brothers.
Welcome to Tea with my Uncle Irohs, Lazy Susan style conversations with mentors and musicians that have inspired me over the years. I'm your host, Son of Paper. Uncle Iroh is a character in Avatar who my generation has deemed the most wise and patient mentor ever. And so this season, I sat down with my uncles and aunties to pick their brains on how to best navigate this planet with wisdom, grace, and compassion. And what better beverage for conversation than tea? Welcome to today's podcast. Gong Hei Fa Choi. Happy New Year, everyone. Today with me, of course, Kimchee Mama. Everyone should know at this point, and if you don't, it's my mom. Go ahead and introduce yourself however you like. And please tell us more of the story of Kimchee Mama and the formation of that.
Let's see. So I am Sabrina Gee-Shin, Kyle's mom. And in addition to being a realtor, I think back in the day, I was one of the embraced Instagram. And I had to come up with a Instagram name and didn't really want to use my first name. So I took on this persona of Kimchee Mama. And back then I was just posting photos of scenery around San Francisco. And then ultimately it became part of my cooking persona. And so I'm Chinese American. Kyle is half. He's half Chinese and half Korean American. So I'm a mom of a Korean kid. So therefore Kimchee Mama.
Great. Okay. Tell us more where you were born and raised. Of course, I know most people know in the audience, but there are some people that might be discovering this pod for the first time. So where are you from, and what communities really raised you to become who you are and have the values that you instilled in me and Dean?
So I am born and raised in San Francisco, as was my father, as one of my grandfathers. So that makes me third generation Chinese American. And I have always loved San Francisco. And when I met Kyle's father, who is from New York, before we even would start dating, I said, you plan on moving to San Francisco, right? So I really want to raise an urban child. Your question was, what was the other question about? Oh, the communities that raised me. So I have two parents who divorced when I was really little, like I was about maybe 4 or 5 years old. And so my mom had to go back into the workforce. And so one of the communities that she worked in Chinatown in the mental health community, very close by was Cameron House. So the day camps, the best day of the week, the summers, the Friday night club program. I'm very grateful for the people at Cameron House and the amazing leaders and nurturers, both women, but particularly in women. There's something really powerful about this really kick-ass, strong, powerful female role models that I'm forever grateful for. And so that's one community, but there's also, I'm a public school product. I went to this hippie school in the 70s called San Francisco Community. And I'm very grateful for that community too. That showed me that it was intentionally diverse. So my best friend was African-American. My mom got to volunteer at that school and be a Chinese American role model to those kids. It was people were of all different careers. And so I think fundamentally that really diverse public school experience has forever shaped the way I see the world, and that when I'm in non-diverse spaces, something doesn't feel right. So I feel very grateful to that community. So both the San Francisco public school community as well as the Chinatown community.
Yeah, you bet you hit all the points I wanted you to. Can you give a shout out to a couple of those mentors?
Mary Pack. Okay, so you've never met her, but Mary Pack lives in Hawaii. She was a Korean American from Chicago, Presbyterian. I don't think she was a minister particularly, but she had an influence on me. Elaine Chan, Lorene Seed. Those were huge people for me, of just people who role model. And it's very easy when you're young to go off a path, to spin out of control because of something, and to have someone sort of scoot you back. And because, all it takes is one mistake to really pull you off track. And it's really nice to have people listen, challenge you, to show you another path. And so I'm very grateful to them. But also so those are the women. The men were like people like Carl Ju, Brad Wu, John He. There's lots of wonderful role models that I had in my life. Going back to that hippie San Francisco Community School, Phil Abrams. Our school was located in Twin Peaks, but it moved to Golden Gate Avenue, which is in the Western Addition. And so I said to my teacher, I said, this neighborhood's kind of dangerous. And he said, why do you say that? What do you have to prove? How can you prove that? And I said, well, the lady at the corner store just got shot. Like, doesn't that make it unsafe? And he said, well, and he gave me a special project. And we were studying maps at that time. I think I was maybe third grade. And he said, I want you to read the paper for the next, 3 weeks. And I want you, every time a crime is written about, I want you to plot it on a map and see if you see a pattern. And I plotted out, and there wasn't a pattern that crime was particularly happening in Western Addition. And so it made me, maybe I was making an assumption or a stereotype about this community. And so that's what I struggled with, or I told him, and he said, well, it's interesting that you made that deduction, but what you may not know is that crime doesn't always make it to the newspaper, particularly in minority communities. And so that lesson stuck with me of, you can say something, but can you prove it? So I find data very important. So just an example as a mentor today.
Yeah. So I've met Philip Abrams, and he came to a Gyoza class. And
yes.
I think the Gyoza class is sort of your version of what I'm trying to do with this podcast in a way, right? It's not quite the same, but you're teaching and you're giving your skills, and I'm trying to do a similar thing to highlight my mentors or people that have had a big impact on me, so that hopefully what we're doing has reverberations out to the rest of the world, and they can feel a little bit of the care as well. Tell me about how you started the Gyoza, Make Gyoza Not War.
The classes, I have always, loved cooking, but I wasn't always a teacher per se. And then my main student was you because you were going off to college. I was really concerned. You have a lot of allergies, and it's been something I've been a sort of a, what do you call, helicopter mom about for you for your entire life. You have a lot of allergies and they're very dangerous actually if you ingest milk or peanuts or something like that. So I'm very protective of you. And so I said, you can only apply to colleges that have kitchens in the dorm. And so we spent a lot of time the summer before you left for your freshman year, training you. And so one of the things I taught you was how to make gyoza, which is basically like a wonton, but it's fried differently. So it's a blend. That particular recipe is a blend of Grandma Bessie, your great grandmother's, the inside, the meat, but the way it's cooked is from my dear friend Mie Katsumata. So her family owns Chaya, which is a vegan Japanese restaurant on Valencia Street. She had a picture of this gorgeous platter of dumplings, gyoza, that were pan fried, and they all sort of like are laced together and all sort of stuck together, look like an upside down pineapple cake kind of thing, but it was just beautiful presentation. So I asked her what her secret was, and she shared it with me. And so I then wanted to share it with you. So we cooked that, and I think it was Dylan was over, and you guys were filming it, and it's a very wow presentation.
Final step, yeah. The
final step is pretty sexy. It's like a party trick. I think Dylan posted, or you posted on Instagram, and it got a lot of play. A lot of people were asking how, and really interested and really impressed. And people started asking, teach me. And I always think people are, I didn't take that very seriously, but I had this one Saturday that was free. It was like a Tuesday. So I posted on Tuesday, does anyone want to learn how to make gyoza? And within less than 5 hours, I had 20 people saying, sign me up, I'm in. So I panicked a little because I don't know if I can fit 20 people in my house, in our dining room, our living room, our kitchen. And so I actually had to strategically break a morning class and an afternoon class. It was amazing. And the context is President Trump got elected as president. And there was something about his election, about the minute he got elected, that I saw a human dynamic happening. So this is the context of the permit patties, the people who were, it was a pattern. White women in particular were accusing or feeling very entitled to call out behavior that they feel was illegal. But there was something about it going on in the world that was very disturbing, that made me not trust my fellow human beings. And so I knew there was a different reality and that I could create that reality. And so that's the why behind all my cooking classes, that I do it because I want to build human connection, human community. And I think food is a very powerful way of doing that. And so when that first 20 people entered my home, none of them knew each other. The only connection they had is me. It was my best friend from when I was 4 years old came, former teachers, former clients, people from camera, but different walks of life in the same living room, cooking together and side by side, chopping green onions and mixing meats and giggling and laughing, learning new ingredients. And there was something very powerful that happened. And so I've probably had over 300 individuals through my home. And the very first class, people were saying, well, Sabrina, how much do I owe you? Because I paid for all the ingredients. And they kept on pushing me. And so I said, well, how about a $10, $20 donation to Cameron House that I'll collect. I have a little basket. You can put your $20 there. And I've been able to raise couple $1,000 for a nonprofit in Chinatown, which I feel indebted to. And so that's what I do. I leverage the community to help other communities.
Yeah. So seeing you do that probably made me subconsciously also very aware of my position as a musician, as a mini influencer and person of the community, and being able to use that influence and power and ability to create compassion and community to then fundraise. And lots of the COVID fundraisers, Chinatown fundraisers that I've been able to do in the last couple of years. Yeah. So obviously we can't do our gyoza classes in the same way that we once were able to due to COVID. So how have you pivoted since then? And what cool things have been created in the last year? But
you and I together, you were home for college. And so we held a 10-week series of cooking classes every Saturday morning I can't believe we did it for 10 weeks.
I forgot.
And it was, so I taught some of the, gyoza is kind of hard because it's multifaceted and stuff like that. But I would teach our crispy garlic tofu class, or we did a bindaduk Korean savory pancake dish. We did stuffed tofus, and we just went through a series of, and that was actually my favorite time of COVID because everything was shut down. Real estate was shut down. You couldn't stage, you couldn't paint, you couldn't have appraisers. That was my favorite time because the industry was shut down. And I got to do the things that I really love that really nurtured me. And so cooking was a part of that. And you were home. And so we would do musical interludes. Remember, we'd cook and prep, and then I would here, take it away. So
Facebook Live.
We were doing Facebook Live. The one new community I've been a part of is something called the Buy Nothing groups. And so we've been a part of the Buy Nothing Richmond district group. And so those people offer I have, an old tent, camping tent. Does anybody want it? Or, but one of the things, in addition to things, you can also give experiences. And so I offered bindaduk Korean, what we call as a Korean laka cooking class. And we did that through Zoom. And that was a super amazing thing because, here I was building community broadly before, but to have it in a very hyper local way, I think it was even more magical to do it with complete strangers, and to build a, I love the idea of building a more resilient local community.
Yeah, I mean, the amazing thing to me about Buy Nothing is that, well, it's not just SF, it's across the country, I think it seems.
It's global.
It's global. And so anyone out there listening to this, you should check that out on Facebook, because you can basically get free stuff and give stuff that you don't need anymore. And it's like, like in a world where everyone's buying things on Amazon that we don't really need, this is a way to keep act a little bit more environmentally friendly, and also be with your neighbors in a cool way. Maybe say a little bit about your job as a realtor and tell us how that came into be, and also what's next after real estate, after you retire.
Oh my God, I can't wait to retire. That's the first thing to say. So my background, I thought I was going to go into public policy and politics, because I love the idea of doing things that benefit the common good. So I love the idea of public schools and public transportation and programs that healthcare that benefits everyone. But I don't have the right temperament for public policy, because to me, it's not just about having a good idea.
You have to kiss a little bit of butt to get to where you want with your policy.
You said that, I didn't say it. It's and I ultimately felt the most good thing I could do for the world was to have children of my own and raise them, and because I felt that could be my contribution to society. So don't disappoint me, Kyle. So I'm just doing the best I can as a mom. I did that for many years, and then my own mother, your grandmother, Carolyn, who was a long-time realtor for over 25, 30 years. For many, many years, she got into an accident. So she was on a cruise ship with great-grandma, Taipaw, to Alaska, and she fell down a spiral staircase on a cruise ship. And they had to airlift her off. She was like in a bit of a coma. And she woke up from the coma. She didn't look so good. Her face was like twisted to the side, and she was very bruised up. And your dad said to me, Sabrina, we have a choice to make. We either shut your mom's business down while she recuperates, or you get your license and help her. And back then, Dean was like maybe 2 years old, and you were like 5. And I loved being a full-time mom. I was like the ultimate preschool super mom. I felt a little forced into getting into the real estate business. And I kind of had this negative image about realtors, that they're slimy, they're about sticky, yucky people. And your grandmother showed me that you could be a person of integrity. You could be helping, oftentimes real estate is not helping a young, cute couple be homebuyers. Oftentimes it could be divorce. It might be selling one's parents' home, a childhood home, because the parents have passed away. Could be family arguing, people under a lot of stress. And so I feel privileged to be able to help families and individuals move from one place, point A to point B, and try to make that as stress-free as possible. So I'm very protective of my clients and want them to understand tax consequences or understand repercussions about how they take title. And these are big decisions. And so I love to, just like empowering people in the kitchen with cooking, I love to empower my buyers and sellers to make really smart decisions that align with their values. I do real estate differently. It's a huge upfront process of a lot of listening. So I love what I do, and I have a team. We're a 3-person team that I run, and we just try to do good.
Yeah,
so
definitely. Shout out to the Embrace SF team. Shout out to Auntie Kelly, and always so supportive of my music. And shout out to Charles. Thank you, Charles.
That's beautiful to watch.
It feels like they're part of the family too, and that the work that you do, you're part therapist in a way too. You're truly listening to your clients And to any realtors out there listening to this podcast, just know that I created Embrace SF as a title. So if you need help with your name branding, let's talk about the backgrounds that we have today.
Yes.
This is new for the podcast. So how did this come to be? How did our newsletter become so fancy and illustrated? And yeah, give a shout out to Adrian.
Yes. So we have been doing for years. We no longer do a Christmas card because our Christmas card would just get lost in the shuffle of other Christmas cards. So many years ago, I'd probably say maybe at least 8 years, we've been doing a Chinese New Year card. And every year we've always had someone different illustrated, or it's usually usually very San Francisco themed. And we, one year we had the Year of the Snake, a serpent wrapping itself around the Golden Gate Bridge, or the monkeys climbing up Sutro Tower. And so we get, every year it's a theme. And this year, we almost didn't do a card. I don't know, maybe it was the whole 2020 thing, or we did a great Chinese New Year. We did a great Chinatown calendar. Thought, do we really need to do something else? And so you and I are both part of something called Asian Hustle Network, which is a really cool Facebook community of Asian entrepreneurs, small businesses who are people putting out their story, their excitement, their questions about their own small business ideas. And one person was Adrian. Adrian posted that she would charge people to do a caricature of themselves and use that money to donate towards Black Lives Matter. And that impressed me. So there was just using her art to, again, leverage it for good. And there was one particular image of this little boy playing on the horns of a dragon or something like that. And I thought, imagine we are playing with a bull, a year of the ox, a bunch of us playing with the ox. And so then we got a little carried away that we wanted each of our personalities to come out. So you doing your deal with an ox, me cooking our favorite gyoza, Dad playing ice hockey with one, and Dean sitting back. So she was amazing to work with. She's young and she is fast and she is creative and she's a great listener, and she captured all of our essence.
Yeah. She's also a teacher.
She's a teacher, a young teacher.
We were really impressed by her, and I'm sure she's already gotten several other commissions just from our New Year's card. But if you want to check her out, I'll put the link in the description of this podcast. Yeah. So everybody asked me, how do your parents feel about you being a rapper? Are they supportive? Question 2 is, from your perspective, how did I get here? How did we wind up in this position we're at, where I am pursuing music, a very unstable, hard career?
I would be lying to say that I'm not I'm not nervous. I hope you make it, because this is gonna be. I just crossing my fingers that you make it, because you. I want you to be successful. I want you to have all that life has to offer, and I would love for you not to be financially stressed. So, because I've done my part, it's up to you. And so, yeah, your dad and I, we're secretly nervous, probably, but we have confidence in you. If you will know how far you want to go and how long you're willing to keep at this. And are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to, so your work ethic and your determination, our job as parents is to give you the foundation, to give you, all we really cared about was you having the best education possible. And every opportunity that we could connect you with, but it's up to you to rise to what you want to rise to. And it's because, I don't know if you remember this, when you were small, there was a Korean fortune teller, right? So this is not something of my doing. This is of your grandmother's, your Halmoni's doing. So what they do is they don't give names before you're born. You have to be born. They look at, it's like a numerology thing, your time, your date, when the planets are aligned, who your parents are and when they were born. And that shapes what your name is going to be and sort of shapes your fortune, your destiny. And so very early on, it said that we should never expect for you to be a doctor because you would make a terrible doctor, but that you were going to be rich and wealthy. And then your brother, his fortune was that he was going to be dean, that he was going to be powerful, so that you were going to be rich and he was going to be powerful, and that you would always be good brothers, have a great relationship. You would be close as brothers. And so I'm just waiting for this Korean fortune to come to fruition. And that's why you were never pressured to be a doctor. Get off the hook. Since you were 2 years old, I knew that was not going to be your...
Me and Dean, I think we're on that path, right? I mean, I am in a very lottery type profession where if I make it big, I can knock it out of the park. And Dean is in a profession where, coders can make a lot of money and be powerful people. So, and
it said that you were going to be famous, right? It said that you were going to be famous, and he was going to be, that was going to take care of us when we get old. So we're not counting on your income to take care of us. You're off the hook. We know who to invest our other energy around.
Do you have any questions for me?
How long? So can you make music in San Francisco? Like before you're focused on moving to LA and you felt that's where you had to be to make it. So now the pandemic's here. Do you feel any differently?
I think it's really hard to tell right now. And I think it's really scary to be in Los Angeles. I think the more and more I'm in San Francisco, the more and more I find that there's lots of things that everything I need is here, including nonprofit work opportunities with Sunset Youth, with Cameron House, stuff where I can rise and make an impact. I don't need to go down to LA for that. It seems as there's like some kind of shift happening that makes everything more virtual. Most of my collaborations have been virtual, so it feels like there's something mysterious in the air that's pushing me somewhere else, or maybe even to stay. So I'm not super drawn to LA. That's my response.
Wow.
I don't think it's necessary anymore. Do you remember when I tried to memorize 200 digits of pi?
Yes.
And
you were so arrogant. You were so convinced you were going to win, and some girl beat you, right?
So from that moment into now, I think I've evolved. Lauren Banks told me one day, she was like, you're like the same, but like way less rough around the edges is how she described me. So what has stayed the same in your eyes, being my mother, and to where I'm at now?
So since you were a small child, you have been ultra competitive. And it was quite annoying as a child. And I was actually really concerned about it. It was the first out the door, the first in the car, the first, competitive chess, and so fierce on the soccer field, like to the point of like, if you didn't win, you bawl and cry. Like it was just, but it was so competitive to me. It was like unhealthy. And I saw this at, we're talking like 6, 7, 8 years old or whatever it is. And for me, this made me concerned. And so there were a lot of smart people in this world. There are a lot of smart, super intelligent people, but a lot of them are frankly jerks, and they're no fun to work with. And they're no fun to collaborate with. Like, I don't think good public policy comes from just smart people and a-holes. To me, good public policy happens because people collaborate, people are listening. And the same at a startup. You can have your dad was a part of a startup, and there are some people who are just bullheaded and it's their way or the highway, and they're no fun to work with. And I would have to listen to all this stuff on their conference calls. And I thought, so when I saw you as this really smart boy, super committed, I thought, oh my God, please don't become, don't let him be this competitive at all costs, win at all costs asshole. I'll just put it out there. And so I was going to beat that part out of you by sending you to the most loving, collaborative school I could find. And I couldn't find it in a public school. So the school that I had you guys go to was a Quaker school, San Francisco Friends School, which was a brand new phenomenon in San Francisco. You were the second entering class. They care about equality and simplicity and integrity and community and all these, amazing values that I love to. And I was going to take you and force feed you to that. And I was looking for schools that you could only do projects. To be successful, you had to do a group project. And you hated every single minute you were there. You hated that everyone got equal time on the basketball court. You hated that they got even bad players could be on the soccer field. That drove you crazy. And so when you ultimately chose a high school, you chose the most competitive, brutal high school. You went to university, which is not known for their lovingness and all that kind of stuff. Because the competitive part of you, that self-confident part of you is just, it cannot be beaten out. It is who you are. It is your essence. But I hope we've tempered it a little bit by putting you in the Cameron House community and the Quaker community, that we've made you, as you go out there in the world, that there is value of collaboration. There is value of listening to others. So I don't know, I'll have to ask you whether you has been a part of steeped in, because I did my best. We paid buku dollars to make you as loving as possible.
I had this realization during COVID, actually, while talking to Dawn, so the last episode, that I realized that I'm not my best self when I'm highly competitive, as you described, right? It's something that comes very easily and naturally to me, this yang side, right? This very fierce, competitive spirit. But if anyone out there is similar to me in that capacity, you might also sometimes feel very imbalanced, very out of control, led by things like anger. It's like the dark side of the force almost.
Oh.
Right? And what I realized is that things that I did, like meditation, like Tai Chi, Qigong, or things like music, or, caring for another person, or like collaboration, all of these things require a lot more yin energy, right? And if you can't be a whole person if you don't have both. And so I realized that that's why I was so drawn to music, and why I actually had a pretty big aversion to things like track, to things like chess. And I quit them out of kind of anger and because I was very imbalanced and I couldn't hold all of that yang energy alone. Of course, I still have yang energy, but I think I'm a lot more balanced now than I was, thanks to music, thanks to just building in healthier parts to my day.
Going back to yang part of, like, your Chinese doctor, because you were a sprinter, you actually went to college to sprint, and he said you were having lots of health issues, right? I can't remember, being itchy and this and that, or I can't remember all the different symptoms, but if you continue sprinting, you will shorten your life, because it is all about and sprinting is different than cross country, because it's like short, powerful bursts that it's going to deplete you. And so for you to quit track after your freshman year was actually a commitment towards your long-term health. And so I think that was a turning point in some ways, to go from this ultra competitive, physically demanding, fulfilling, right? Like, I mean, it feeds one part of you, but it also empties, it depletes a part of you. So I'm glad that you've discovered a balanced approach to life, and to discover it young. I mean, you're still young. Like, some people don't discover that until their 50s and have cancer or something like that, So
on that note, I think we should actually wrap it up. And
I thought you're gonna have us sing a song together. Like,
You should do the Herman the Worm. I think that would be for another podcast, another day. But thank you, Mom, for coming on. You can follow her at Kimchee Mama, and I'm sure that if you already are friends with Facebook on my mom, you've probably seen all of the stuff that our family does, and that she's actually basically an influencer herself. Yeah, thanks for raising me. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
And I'm very proud of you. And I'm proud that you're dedicating this first series of your podcast to your mentors, because oftentimes people don't realize the impact they're having. and it's an honor for him to be engaged and be told when you're alive that you've made a difference. And so I'm so glad you have chosen to do this. And I know you're going to go on a next series, focusing on other musicians, but I'm glad you're telling all your mentors how much they mean to you. So.
All right, Mom. Thanks for coming on. Cheers.
Cheers. Good night.
Okay. Thanks, Mama.
Bye, sweetie.
All right. Bye. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll come home and grab some food.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Tea with My Uncle Irohs. Catch us every Monday on your favorite podcasting service. TWMUI is written and produced by me. Definitely rate and review us on iTunes and follow me at Son of Paper on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. Theme music by Keys. For more, visit facebook.com/unlockedkeys. Spill with y'all next time on Tea with My Uncle Irohs.